Why the lion was never actually the king of the jungle. There is a title that has survived for over 4,000 years without a single vote, a single contest, or a single fight to prove it. King of the jungle. Say it out loud, and an image appears instantly. A lion, mane blowing in the wind, roaring over a kingdom of dense green forest. Here's the problem. Lions have never lived in jungles. Not now, not in recorded history, not ever, as far as fossil and ecological evidence show. They live on open grassland, savanna, scrubland, dry plains where you can see for miles in every direction, the exact opposite of a jungle. Meanwhile, in the actual forests of Asia, the mangrove swamps, the bamboo thickets, the snow-covered taiga, a different cat has been living this entire time. Larger in most measured cases, more muscular, built for exactly the terrain the lion is supposedly ruling, the tiger. So why does a species that has never set foot in a jungle carry the title of its king? The answer has almost nothing to do with biology and almost everything to do with how the human brain assigns power. Start with geography, because it settles the habitat question quickly. Nearly every wild lion alive today lives across sub-Saharan Africa's savanna belt. A single isolated population survives in India's Gir forest. But even that habitat is dry, deciduous woodland and scrub, not tropical rainforest. Tigers, by contrast, are forest specialists in the truest sense. From the flooded mangroves of the Sundarbans to the frozen forests of the Russian Far East, tigers evolved stripes specifically to break up their outline in vegetation. Field researchers tracking tigers in Nepal and India have documented animals passing within a few meters of human observers, completely undetected. If the crown were based on habitat, the tiger wins without debate. That's where the mystery actually begins. The phrase didn't come from a lab, it came from geography of a different kind. The geography of ancient trade routes and empires. Lions once ranged across North Africa, the Middle East, Southern Europe, and parts of Western Asia. Egyptian, Assyrian, Persian, Greek, and Roman civilizations all lived close enough to encounter them regularly. Assyrian palace reliefs from the 7th century BCE depict kings hunting lions as a display of royal strength, one of the earliest recorded links between lions and sovereignty. Tigers lived much farther east, inside forests that most Mediterranean and Near Eastern cultures never reached, so the civilizations that built the mythology, art, and language later inherited by the West simply never had tigers to write about. By the time European explorers finally encountered tigers in South and Southeast Asia centuries later, the lion had already been carved into thrones, coins, and coats of arms for thousands of years. The crown was already taken, but history alone doesn't explain why the image stuck. That answer is psychological. Human beings are unusually sensitive to visibility as a signal of dominance. We are more likely to perceive someone as a leader simply because they occupy space openly and confidently, a bias documented repeatedly in research on nonverbal status cues, where taller, more visible, more vocal individuals are consistently rated as more competent and dominant, regardless of actual ability. Lions behave in a way that triggers this bias almost perfectly. Unlike solitary cats, lions live in prides. A dominant male doesn't hide his presence. He patrols the open plain and roars loudly enough to be heard up to 8 kilometers away under the right conditions. That's not incidental. It's territorial broadcasting, a signal meant to be seen and heard by rivals and pride members alike. Tigers operate on the opposite strategy. They are solitary, mostly silent, and built for concealment rather than display. Their communication happens through scent marking and scratch signs, quiet, indirect, and invisible to anyone but another tiger. Humans across cultures tend to associate visibility with strength and invisibility with mere secrecy. That bias may have decided the crown before biology ever had a say. Then there's the mane, possibly the single biggest reason the lion looks like royalty at all. In 2002, biologists Peyton West and Craig Packer published a landmark study in Science based on decades of data from Tanzania's Serengeti lion population. They found that mane color and length function as an honest signal. Darker, fuller manes correlate with higher testosterone levels, greater fighting success, and better reproductive outcomes. Females in their study consistently preferred males with darker manes when given a choice between mock lion models. But the study also uncovered a real cost. Darker manes trap more heat, and heavily maned males suffered immeasurably worse heat stress in warmer conditions, meaning the mane isn't just ornamental, it's evolutionarily expensive to wear. To the human eye, though, none of that cost is visible. What's visible is size. A mane makes a lion's head and shoulders look substantially larger than they are, a visual exaggeration effect well documented in animal signaling research, where perceived size shapes assessments of dominance faster than actual measured strength does. Long before anyone forged a crown out of gold, evolution had already built one out of hair. So what about the actual physical comparison? Is the tiger really stronger? The data leans toward yes, at least on raw size. The Siberian tiger is generally recognized as the largest living cat, with adult males regularly exceeding 180 to 300 kilograms, depending on the population studied. Bengal tigers, too, are frequently heavier on average than African lions, which typically range from 150 to 190 kilograms. Studies of tiger musculature point to exceptional upper body strength, consistent with a predator built to bring down solitary prey as large as gaur and water buffalo without help from other tigers. What the data does not support is the popular claim that a tiger would simply defeat a lion in a fight. That comparison is almost impossible to test rigorously. Wild lions and tigers don't share territory, so there is no natural record of contests between them. Historical accounts of staged fights, from Roman arenas to colonial-era exhibitions in India, are anecdotal, inconsistently documented, and shaped heavily by the conditions of captivity rather than natural behavior. Lions didn't evolve for one-on-one combat anyway. Living in prides meant evolving for something else entirely: cooperative hunting, coordinated territorial defense, and prolonged battles against coalitions of rival males. Tigers evolved as solitary ambush specialists. Comparing the two isn't comparing two versions of the same job. It's comparing two entirely different jobs. Here's where the mystery deepens even further. The lion's crown was never universal to begin with. Travel east, past the regions where lion mythology took root, and the story reverses completely. In Chinese, Korean, and much of Southeast Asian folklore, the tiger, not the lion, is the symbol of kingship, protection, and cosmic authority. Ancient Chinese art places the tiger alongside the dragon as one of the two great symbols of imperial power. Korean folk paintings depict the tiger as a guardian spirit capable of warding off evil. In these traditions, the tiger didn't need to prove anything to earn its throne. It was simply the largest, most formidable predator the culture actually lived beside. In other words, the king was never fixed. It was assigned locally by whichever apex predator happened to share a landscape with the people telling the stories. Europeans crowned the lion because that's who they encountered. East Asian cultures crowned the tiger for the exact same reason. Neither culture ran a scientific comparison. Both simply elevated whichever animal was close enough to inspire awe. That single fact quietly dismantles the entire premise of a universal animal king. The title was never really about the animal. It was about which predator happened to live near the people doing the naming. The word jungle itself adds one more twist. It comes from the Sanskrit jangala, which originally meant dry, uncultivated wilderness, not dense rainforest at all. As the word moved through Persian, Hindi, and eventually English via colonial-era literature, its meaning drifted until jungle became shorthand for almost any wild landscape. By the time the phrase king of the jungle became popular in Western books and films, the word no longer meant what it once did. The lion inherited a kingdom partly built on a mistranslation that nobody bothered to correct. None of this is really about lions or tigers. It's about why humans need a king in the first place. Human cognition is built to simplify complexity into hierarchy. We look for a single figure to represent an entire category: a fastest animal, a strongest animal, a smartest animal. Even when nature itself rarely produces a single winner, evolution doesn't crown champions. It rewards whatever survives in a given environment. The tiger rules the forest. The lion rules the open plain through cooperation, not size. Neither had to defeat the other to earn that role. The lion never declared itself king. Humans did, not because of size, not because of habitat, not because science demanded it, but because for thousands of years, when people pictured courage and authority, one animal simply looked the part. Sometimes a crown isn't won, it's just repeated long enough to become true. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. See you in the next one.